Hi, this is Vicky with Learning Home Volunteers, and welcome back to our learning session entitled Marks. I hope you and your child are really having fun exploring these different materials, both to mark on and to use, make marks. We would love to see your children's and your masterpieces, so please post. We want to see what both of you guys are expressing. Well, this next activity, activity number 6, we're making our marks by actually doing rubbings. And in our warehouse, I found all sorts of textures to rub. I rubbed a fly swatter and a cooling rack and ripples on cardboard. I loved using the flat crayon to actually try making out the marks. I also used leaves and stems, even sandpaper and the stencils included in activity number 12. It was super fun, and I got all sorts of interesting results. How you actually use the crayon and what side you use, the pressure you apply, all of those things will actually affect what happens. For example, using the point of the crayon will make these really clear marks. When you apply pressure, it'll be darker or lighter when you use less. However, you use the flat side of the crayon, you'll end up with picking up any texture that happens to be around and giving you this kind of marbled effect. And the bottom, the rounded end on the bottom of the crayon will get you an entirely different kind of mark. Uh, the kind of mark that you can, the way that you make the marks, whether it's lines or making dots, will actually give you something else. And by making dots, like this one's going tick, 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 you could end up with an effect that looks like this. Or you could mix colors, blend colors. We use a green one and a yellow one to get this kind of lime thing. If you color one over the other, like what we see here, then you can use a white crayon to soften the blending right over the top, which is really cool. Well, activity number 7 is all about scraping paint. Scraping is so much fun to do with paint. And in your box, you're going to find obviously the paint. And using a spoon, I think that you want to put dots of on the paper, like we're seeing here. And then using the plastic thing, the blue plastic thing, you want to actually scrape the paint onto the paper like this. They're using a credit card or a library card. We've included a true scraper that's used to actually clear off windows, but the effect is the same. I think the thing that surprised me is almost anything worked. This is a different approach. You could put the paint on the scraper piece and then drag it along the paper, and it looks like this. Even over places that have actually already been painted, and it ends up kind of creating this plaid effect, which is really amazing. We also use that same technique. We can create different shapes by actually twisting the thing, and that produced some really cool and interesting effects too. But I'm sure you guys will find even more that we didn't actually get to play with. Well, this next activity is called monoprinting, and we're actually going to use fingerprint first to make a drawing, and then we're going to transfer it to a piece of paper. This is actually called monoprint. We're going to use finger paint for this, which is a slightly different, thicker paint. It is washable. Normally, I put a cookie sheet down on the table and put the paint on the cookie sheet, and then let the child explore the marks that they could use making their hands. What we see here is a child actually on a plastic table, so it doesn't really make much difference, and they're making their marks with a hand. Now, once you've uh, got whatever you like. You could have used brushes or sponges or anything really that you wanted to make the picture. But once you have a picture that you like this one here, we can actually print it onto a piece of paper. Excuse me. So here's our picture, and then what we do is lay a piece of paper over it and then pull it away, and we end up with a picture that actually transfers to a piece of paper. That's super cool. And this technique is actually the same technique that's actually used in printing, except that they put theirs onto a plate, whether it's a metal plate or in this case, a plastic plate. They make their drawing on that, and then they use the plate to make more copies of it. How cool is that? Well, that's all for this week. I'll talk to you next week.